Heading to South Africa. Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. How are you?
What's going on?
It's hot here. It's warm. I think obviously the Munster fans that are here are very happy after the weekend, and the Leinster ones, of course, as well up in Joburg. But it was a good weekend for the two away teams, Leinster and Munster.
The Munster performance was really, really important because it guarantees Champions Cup qualification for next year, right?
Well, it more or less guarantees, I think, unless Benetton or Scarlets can win the Challenge Cup, it may mean then that you have to finish at least sixth, that's seventh or eighth, because of the Welsh Shield. Cardiff will probably win that, and they'll not be in the top eight of the league, so they'll take a European place. And if Scarlets or Benetton, who won't make the top eight either, were to win the Challenge Cup, it would mean only the top six who finish in the top six in the league will go through. But more or less, you would say probably 90% sure that Munster will have European rugby next year and be in the playoffs. I don't think anyone would have expected a bonus point win against the Stormers, Ger, and it was a great performance. It was full of grit, determination, but also tactically they were so much better than, we'll say, a couple of weeks ago against the Sharks. You know, they obviously had a good first half against the Sharks in the Champions Cup, but one of the big differences this time, I think, was defensively. They weren't conceding tries and line breaks, and I know they got broken a few times, but so much better organised. They conceded 18 tries in the previous 3 games, and their defence was a real key. And the other one was probably the breakdown. Peter O'Mahony was phenomenal. Gavin Coombs had a huge second half, but O'Mahony throughout the whole game was just tormenting the Stormers' breakdown, and he was brilliant, as many of the other Munster players were.
So what's the turnaround in performance? Where did it come from?
I think it came from, look, obviously, you know, when you have a situation where you concede 55 points, you look back on it and players analyse, coaches analyse. So I think they would have looked at the Sharks game. Obviously, the heat played a role in that, and the humidity in Durban, and they were playing against a very powerful side. So people often ask, how do you stop that power and physicality? And well, you've got to get in early and stop them getting their rolling maul going and really be on the money at the breakdown and be accurate, and your execution around ball placement, all that kind of stuff. So I think Munster were so much better at that. There was moments in the game where the Stormers flexed their muscles and it was worrying, but the start of the game gave them confidence and belief, and I just think their breakdown was so much better. Their speed of movement on the ground to get in, support players, recycle the ball, and tactically they played very well. They made some mistakes and errors, I'm sure they look back on it, but they were a real nuisance to the Stormers' breakdown for the whole game, and defensively they were connected, and they got good line speeds and didn't allow the Stormers kind of play their game that they're so good at. They're very, very quick, and you know, they're an ambitious side who throw the ball around a lot. So they didn't really let the Stormers ever get into that flow for a long periods of time, and came up with many big moments in the game. I think the most crucial part for me was that 10 minutes after half time, easily could have dropped the heads, because, you know, Stormers had that surge of pressure and scored just before half time to make it 12-all. And the crucial part then was those 10 minutes in the second half. Stormers had 3 or 4 opportunities. Peter O'Mahony steals one line out. They kick to the corner, the 5-metre line out. Peter O'Mahony steals it on the far side of the field. Gavin Coombs steals a ball in a maul that the referee, nobody knows how he got it, but they turned it over. And then the Calvin Nash tackle in the corner on Senatla, I think, or Hartzenberg. I'm not sure. I can't remember which one of the wingers it was, but he made a brilliant tackle in the corner. They got those breaks. They kind of created their own little bit of luck as well, because you see Shane Daly had a similar type break and he scores the try. So they, you know, that 10 minutes after half time won the game for Munster, and they were superb. I think they could have easily dropped the head. So obviously there was a lot of desperation, and that can fire you up and drive you on. But they played really well tactically as well, and it was amazing for them to get a bonus point win given their form coming into this game.
We should give a special mention as well, Quinny, to your fellow Tipperary man, Diarmuid Barron. Couple of tries and an impressive performance overall, I think.
Yeah, right across the board, I think. But he played very well. He got 2 tries, and their Munsters maul was really good. It started brilliantly. R.G. Snyman, John Klein, they kind of had big games as well. They're big players. Obviously, people are going into the game talking about the front row and the worry and the concern there. Based on what we saw the last day, Stephen Archer had to play 80 minutes, phenomenal. Keenan Knox comes on for Gavin Coombs at the end of the game, but Jeremy Lockman as well, he hasn't played in a while. He was outstanding. He's up against arguably the best tight head in Franz Malherbe, and for Lockman to come in, and Munster scrum was very, very good. So right across that front row, I think they deserve to get credit for this performance. And it's a big performance. From the result is just massive, because the implications of losing these 2 games and not being in Europe were very big for Munster. So right across the board, I think the effort levels and the energy they brought and the fight and grit and determination, I think they shocked the Stormers. The Stormers coach John Dobson was speaking afterwards, and he had nothing good to say about his team. I'm sure when they look back at the game, they know they can be better. But Munster read it really, really difficult for him. And Diarmuid Barron had a big game, which was great to see, because not just from the tries, the tackles he made and the carries around the field were superb.
Conor Murray was good for Ireland in the Six Nations, but didn't get the start in Europe or the Champions Cup rather, obviously in South Africa, and got the start on Saturday and played well. Was it a mistake in retrospect not to pick him in the Champions Cup?
I don't know. I think at the time his form wasn't great. It's a good sign of the character that he's responded really well and didn't let that kind of define his season or his career, and kind of let his career peter out. Not being in the 23 for Munster's Champions Cup game against Northampton in Thomond Park, the easy thing to do there would be, well, maybe it's not, the easy thing is probably the wrong phrase, but you could drop your head there and you could kind of be frustrated and negative about it. He's chose the opposite, which is a great kind of example for young players when they get dropped. I had plenty of experiences that in my career, and they're not easy. And you think of the perception that people then have of you as a player, that you're not in the 23, and so he's responded really well. I thought he was really, really good the other night. He was very composed, made a lot of good decisions. His kicking game, his passing, and he was, he kind of was a real good leader for the team, made a lot of tackles as well. So
you'd say his first choice now for the rest of the season, on the basis of the fact that they didn't start him against the Sharks and they got hammered, and he starts this game and there's more, it feels like there's more control, and particularly when they've decided that they know who their out half is, it feels like as well.
Well, if you play well, look, for Craig Casey, I don't think he had his best game against the Sharks. He's a very, very talented player, but they've gone with Conor Murray for this game, and he's played really well and shown his experience, and he's got to back that up. Whether he'll start this week, whether Craig Casey will start, I don't know, but he's responded in a really positive way, Jared, that for any sports person who is in that situation, it's a good decision to kind of pick yourself up, be positive with the team, and that's remembered as well. And a lot of players spoke about that, how positive he was for that week that he was dropped. He wasn't negative. He didn't have a kind of a sulky head in him. He was trying to help players, help the team. So that's really important, and that's a good example and message. But he's put himself in a position now that he looks like he's kind of won back that jersey for a moment. But that can change very quickly. Yeah. Craig Casey is a superb player.
Let's talk about the 10s. Is Joey Carbery in South Africa?
Yeah, he is. He's with the team. He warmed up with them. He was there with them, and he's gone through a tough time, hasn't he? Because again, you're talking about perception and where he's been, and the level he's been at for a number of years, being second choice for Ireland, playing plenty of games, been involved all the time, and now he finds himself for this game for the first time outside the Munster 23. So again, he's going to have to kind of battle this kind of tough period out, and I still believe he's a quality player. The decision to go with Ben Healy and go with Jack Crowley starting instead of him a couple of weeks ago, it's purely down to tactics and what the Munster coaches see, and they've gone with Crowley and picking Ben Healy on the bench at the weekend. Obviously was a big moment for Ben Healy. Very disappointing for Joey Carbery, but it's totally tactical, and that's the way the Munster coaches have gone. And I think Ben Healy was very good when he came off the bench. Sorry,
you do wonder there if what's going to happen next season, if maybe Ben Healy regrets the fact that he won't be there next season to compete for the 10 slot, because you see how quickly you can get into Ireland consideration, and also what happens after the World Cup when Sexton goes. So I do want to talk about Sam Prendergast and his performance. Obviously, Leinster fans very excited about the fact that he's getting the start, and at one stage in the first half it looked like the game was kind of running away a little bit from Leinster, and everybody was like, oh well, that's to be expected, this is an inexperienced side. But the second half performance was one of those, no, hang on a second, we've been unbeaten all year, we're not going to just fold our tents up here. Let's talk about Prendergast first. How did he get on?
He was superb, I think, and it's extraordinary for such a young player to come into a team that has very high expectations, obviously, and are, missing all their frontline internationals. I think it would be easy to manage Sam Prendergast and slip him in there with 10 internationals around him and think, God, that's going to protect him better. But he's obviously a strong mind, strong spirit, and they believe in his quality and talents. And anybody who watches closely the under 26 nations can see that talent and that ability. But he's obviously a strong character as well, and he was superb on Saturday, because you said it, Jared, they were 15 points down at one stage. You kind of buy into the narrative that we've good moral victory here and we've done well and we've scored a few tries and we've given it a lash. But their mentality is totally different. I think they kept believing and kept back in their pace in that second half, to score 3 tries and change the whole picture of the game, really. I think that the Lions kind of, probably switched off and thought that they're going to, overpower Leinster here and get the job done. But we've seen this from Leinster and the standards they set over the years, that you just can't shake them off. So it was a brilliant performance for him, full of control, confidence, and he's a quality player who's Leinster are very lucky to have him, and we're going to see a lot more of Sam Prendergast in the next couple of years. Yeah,
you wonder how quickly he's going to be able to force his way into the Leinster team, because obviously there's an established pecking order at the moment, but those types of performances are the ones that get you noticed and make everybody go, let's just stick him in the first team and see what happens here.
Chris Cosgrove was outstanding as well, full back. There's a couple of young players there that have incredible talent. Tommy O'Brien, having him back, he's had a bad run of injuries, and Liam Turner gets a great try as well. So a lot of good, exciting young players there that stepped up in a pretty hostile environment.
Yeah. I do want to ask you about the news that broke then that Stuart Lancaster's replacement is going to be Jack Nienaber. You'd probably be familiar with him from his time at Munster. Yeah. Obviously, his exact role within South Africa, the title is head coach, and Razzie's supposed to be the director of rugby. It always felt like it was Razzie's show. So, what was your instinct when you heard this?
Initially shocked, I think, like everybody else. Didn't see that one coming. It's a great coup for Leinster. I think the level of compliments that you'd hear about Jack Nienaber and the way he can inspire players, and the Munster players loved him. I think with a less talented squad, possibly, and playing a different type of game a number of years ago when he was there with Rassie, I think he made Munster so hard to beat defensively. I think there's obviously more to his game than just being a defensive coach. I think he would have evolved over the years, but very inspirational, very motivated, incredibly on detail, and it's an incredible coup. I think that the shock that most people got and the surprise, obviously it was kept very quiet. It was going to be broken here in South Africa, so I think both Leinster and the Springboks decided to get it out before somebody else did. There's a lot of shock here. They're very surprised. Speaking to a lot of journalists at the game in Cape Town on Saturday evening, they were all very surprised. Matthew Pearce, who does the commentary for SuperSport, he's their main commentator. He did an event last week with Jack Nienaber and for 2 hours somewhere, and there wasn't a sniff or a whiff of this going on, and it was all about Springbok planning and going forward and stuff. So he says he's done it for personal reasons. He's obviously got a break clause in his contract here that allows him to leave. Razzie's, I was reading up about it, Razzie's contract definitely has one. So I presume they were both the same when they re-signed, and those contracts were supposed to go till 2025. So they obviously have a break clause in the contract that he's activating now after the World Cup, and he says it's personal reasons. So it's not a bad team to go to, is it, if you want to change the scenery and move your family? And I know that both families, I'm not overstepping the mark here, I know that Razzie's family and Jack's family loved it in Ireland, and they weren't keen to go back at the time. But obviously then the head job with South Africa and those roles came up for both of them, and they couldn't really turn that down. So maybe they want to go back to Ireland and experience it again. And it's not going to please all the Munster fans, and it is a bit surprising. But that's the nature of the business. You know, Leinster have got, from what we can gather and what we've seen, an outstanding coach here, and it's an incredible coup for them.
As the South African team's addition to the URC and Champions Cup, is that a happy coincidence? Would that have made Leinster want to go after Nienaber a little bit more, albeit he's a brilliant coach in his own right, but would that have been an influence on the decision, do you reckon, Quinny?
I'm not sure, Shane. I don't think that's would have anything really to do with it. I just think, Leo would have known how good he was for Munster with, as I said, a less talented squad. Did a great job. They got Munster into a URC final at the time and semi-final of Europe. They were incredibly difficult to beat, and you hear stories coming out from coaches with all these clubs how good a coach is, and sometimes the best endorsement you can get is from players. It is from players, because the type of coach you are, the way you deal with people, all that kind of stuff. So he was loved in Limerick, and I'm sure the Leinster fans will really take to Jack Nienaber. And so I don't know if it was anything to do with picking a South African. I think Leinster have gone for one of the best coaches in world rugby. He coached the Springbok side to win a World Cup. He's done remarkably well since with them, and he's a very, very impressive CV. And again, Leo would have known what and Leinster, not just Leo, they would have known how good he was in Munster and how well liked he was. But it's a great coup for them.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Quinny, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
It's Alan Quinlan giving us his thoughts there at 13 minutes past 9.